Bucky Irving is back and absolutely smashed for week 13. We're moving on to week 14, but we got to talk about everything that happened this past week. We have one more week until the fantasy football playoffs. I'm your host, Pete Nova, here with Player Profiler, and we're going to get you all ready and set for what you need to know right here on Player Profiler. What's going on, guys? Pete Nova here with Player Profiler. I am back today for the top 10 takeaways from week 13 and what we can gather from week 13 and apply it to the rest of the season because there's not much left, right? We have week 14 and then it's the fantasy football playoffs. We have 4 weeks left of fantasy football and it's been an awesome season. Thank you guys so much for, paying attention to the content, supporting our content here at Player Profiler. We're super, super close to 30,000 subscribers. So if you are not already subscribed, make sure you do so. It helps me out. It helps the Podfather out. It helps all the other hosts here out at Player Profiler, including the people that do the written content on the website as well. Again, super excited to be here with you guys today to break down everything that transpired last week and my top takeaways from the week prior. Let's jump into the first takeaway, and it's going to be the injury roundup because there was some significant injuries this week that definitely need to be discussed. The first guy we'll talk about is Marvin Harrison Jr., who was already out for 2 weeks due to having some surgery, which was not a major surgery, right? He's out 2 weeks. He comes back and he leaves this game early, right, with a heel injury. Now, I'm not super sure how long this is going to keep Marv out. He might just be back next week. Maybe they were being cautious, but it's not like this was a re-aggravation. So that's kind of frustrating. But if you do have Michael Wilson and, of course, Trey McBride, this is news that's not super disappointing for you because odds are those are just one less mouth to feed. And so we'll see. We'll keep in touch. We'll monitor what's going on with Marvin Harrison Jr. and the heel. The next player to talk about is Justin Herbert, right? Broken bone in his left hand. Is going to have surgery today, was reported. He said he's preparing and expected to play this week. All reports that I've read from the injury, quote unquote, doctors out there on the airwaves, on Twitter, on SiriusXM, pretty much everybody that's weighed in on this has said, hey, good news is he'll probably play rest of the season. It's not going to be a club or anything like that. They'll probably wrap it up. So good news if you have Justin Herbert. I know I'm happy about that news because I've got Justin Herbert in a 14-man league, and I am the 1 seed in that league, and I have no backup quarterback, right? Roster space is super limited, not a lot of bench spots. And so, Justin Herbert missing time would be pretty detrimental to me. And I'm sure a lot of you fantasy managers, because, we got a bye week, and then the week before that, we did not get much from Justin Herbert. So we haven't really gotten much from him 2 weeks prior to this week. So we hope that we can get a good stretch for him for the playoffs. Some other players, maybe a little less notable, but still important to talk about. Shedeur Sanders left the game but did return back, and reports are indicating that he is going to start next week. Parker Washington, who has kind of made a name for himself this year, he's stood out in a very big way for this Jaguars offense. He leaves with a hip injury and doesn't return in this one. Jacoby Myers has a big game. Brenton Strange with another really good game, and BTJ with not really much of a exciting performance in his first week back in a good matchup here. If Parker Washington misses time, it can't be understated that should be helpful to Brian Thomas Jr. And it's crazy that we're at this point in the year with Brian Thomas Jr. where we're sitting here saying Parker Washington's absence is going to be a nice bump up for him. If you told us that before the season started, we probably would assume that either Parker Washington just became an absolute elite receiver or Brian Thomas Jr. had a disaster of a season. And that's pretty much what has happened so far. So something to monitor there. Aaron Jones, running back for the Minnesota Vikings, shoulder injury, needs further evaluation, something to monitor with that. And Jordan Mason, of course, steps up and would be the bell cow in that situation. The concern with Jordan Mason, if Aaron Jones does miss some time, is Jordan Mason, last time we saw, didn't have a great did not perform extremely well with Aaron Jones's absence. He had a game here and there, but the problem was that he wasn't getting those receiving targets, and so he wasn't getting the high value touches. And at this point, with this Vikings offense, there aren't really many high value touches in this offense due to the bad quarterback play. So something to monitor there with Aaron Jones. It's late in the year. It's tough losing running back depth. So, we'll see how that goes, and it's going to be further evaluated this week. And the last player we're talking about is Xavier Restrepo, who came along last week, ends up leaving the game early. His ankle is being evaluated. That's a guy that in limited time showed that Cam Ward trusts him, and a little bit of a safety blanket for Cam Ward. So Xavier Restrepo, ankle injury, not major news. Don't need to talk too much about that. Let's go ahead to our second takeaway, and it's going to be our waiver wire ads. Now, of course, Matt is going to do the waiver wire show either later today or tomorrow, as he always does. But I like to give sometimes a little bit of some players, or a little bit of a look ahead of some players that I'm taking a stab at this week on my waiver wire ads. The number one player that I think should be added is Isaac Tesla, right? Isaac Tesla, 5% roster across fantasy formats. We know St. Brown's going to miss time. Is it going to be more than 1 week? Not super sure. But what I do know is that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be facing the Lions this week in a dome environment, in a game that should be high scoring, right? Both of these teams have been in high scoring games all season long, right? And Isaac Tesla, no Sam Laporta, no St. Brown. It's really Jameson Williams, who's been up and down all season long, and Isaac Tesla, who for some reason, when given opportunities, he scores touchdowns. He scored a touchdown this week. We've seen him come in limited opportunities and score touchdowns in weeks prior. So should be a really, really nice add, and somebody that should be a priority. He's my number one priority this week. If Isaac Tesla is not an option for you at wide receiver, Pat Bryant is also a guy that I would take a look at as well. 2% rostered. He's getting on the field more and more. He's getting more comfortable. Not as much of a high priority, though. I wouldn't spend a ton of FAB, and that should be in more deeper leagues if you're looking to pick up Pat Bryant. At the running back position, Devin Neal, 42% rostered. We talked about him last week. He's been a guy that's been heavily talked about all pretty much the past full week, when you factor in Kamara got injured last week. But Devin Neal, still only 42% rostered, right? 14 rushes, right? And that's a heavy workload. He didn't do a ton with the rushes, but he also caught 3 passes for 22 yards. The important thing to note about Devin Neal is we did get workhorse volume here, right? Taysom Hill saw a lot of touches in the week where Kamara got knocked out, right? But this week he only ran the ball just 1 time. Right? Bye weeks are coming this week. We have 4 teams on a bye this week. And so he should be a guy that's viewed as an RB2 option this week, with guys that are going to miss time this week. Christian McCaffrey is going to be out. Trevion Henderson's going to be out, right? We're going to have a couple of teams on buys. And not to mention, the schedule remains elite for Devin Neal. I don't know that Devin Neal is going to be an RB1 rest of the season. I wouldn't bank on that because the offense is so bad. But factoring in this team should be playing from behind rest of the season. He catches passes, and the schedule is very, very good, right? Not a lot of good defenses when it comes to limiting running backs to points allowed. So Devin Neal should definitely be somebody that's you're rostered. Chris Rodriguez is a secondary option here too. Just 12% rostered, right? He doesn't have a great schedule coming up, but 15 rushes, 79 yards. He's the best back on this team for the Commanders. Chris Rodriguez should be rostered, should be somebody you should be picking up, especially if you're an Aaron Jones manager, especially with the bye weeks coming up. At the tight end position, Darren Waller, still just 20% rostered. He had 2 catches for 47 yards this week. He gets the Jets next week, and then he has 2 super smash matchups with the Steelers and the Bengals. Outside of Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane, right, there's no clear other pass catcher on this offense, right? There's a couple of guys that we thought, would maybe step up, but they really haven't, right? And Darren Waller, first game back, 42 yards, right? I mean, that's a solid sign for him. The biggest thing has always been health for him. Can he stay healthy? Next, we're going to go to quarterback, which is not super sexy, and nobody really wants to talk about it. We're not going to spend too much time on it. Trevor Lawrence comes to mind as a player to take a look at, right? 30% rostered. He plays the Colts this week coming up. Sauce Gardner obviously goes down with the calf injury. It doesn't end up being as serious as we expect, but I expect him to be out this week, right? Trevor Lawrence is an option, especially if you have some of these quarterbacks on buys like Drake May. That's coming up this week. The Bucs defense, if you looking for a defense, I've talked about it on my own channel, on my Twitter account, right? Bucs defense should be a priority pickup, right? They are a must-add defense. 28% rostered right now, 2 sacks and 2 turnovers in week 13, right? They had a very, very good outing this past week against Arizona, and the schedule is very, very good rest of season. They get the Saints this coming week up, they get Atlanta, then they get the Panthers, then they get Miami, and then they get the Panthers again. This is a very, very good schedule for a defense that, while they've struggled over the last couple of weeks, they bounced back this week. And keep in mind, they played really, really good teams and really good offenses. 4 top 10 offenses in that 5-week stretch coming into last week where they did not look like a very good defense. So they should be a priority add for you. If you're looking at a defense to stream this week, that would be one that I would make a priority for you. Now, if we're talking about, the season and Thanksgiving just ended, and I know I ate a ton of food. I got to the gym this morning, right? I'm trying to work off some of these calories, but you should take a look at our partner with FITBOD.
Oh, working out so important for your health, for your sex life, for everything, just everything in general. I perform better across the board, podcasting, you name it. The last thing I need to be thinking about is, creating a new workout routine. That's why we have FITBOD. It prevents you from plateauing. It's so customizable in that I have one super strong shoulder and one kind of weak shoulder. And yet the FITBOD app helps me customize my workouts to improve the strength and the endurance. I go in, my physical therapist is like, I can't believe you're doing this many. And I'm like, I know. Can you believe this? And he's like, yeah, this is crazy. So level up your workouts. They have over 1,000 demonstration videos. And join FITBOD today to get your personalized workout plan, which includes 25% off, or try the app for free for 7 days. Go to fitbod.me/player, fitbod.me/player, FITBOD/player for 25% off for 7 days free.
There you hear it. If it has the stamp of approval from the Podfather, it's got my stamp of approval as well. Aside from maybe some takes in terms of some players that we disagree on, but that's natural. That's what makes things good here at Player Profiler. Let's move on to number 3, and it's A.J. Brown. Back-to-back games for A.J. Brown and this Eagles. Well, I don't even want to say Eagles offense because the Eagles offense, it's not changing, guys, right? Let's talk about A.J. Brown first. He leads the NFL in receiving yards after the last 2 weeks. 121 yards per game, third in targets with 22, 39.5% first read target share, 5th in the NFL during this time. That's per fantasy points. And Eagles offense, though, let's talk about it, right? It's not going to change. We've heard they're not going to make a change at the play caller, right? They're not going to fire Kevin Patullo, right? I don't think that this offense has the ability to change, right? I think it's not necessarily that they don't want to, but I don't think Nick Sirianni is going to make major changes because he can't, right? This offense, the foundation of it is from Nick Sirianni, right? And as long as like Nick Sirianni stepping in and calling plays is only going to make himself look worse if things do not get better, right? And it's hard to look worse with this Kevin Patullo thing, his buddy that he hired, and it's been an absolute disaster. We know that, right? And people are sitting here saying, Nick Sirianni, what do you exactly do here, right? If the culture's not good, which it hasn't been good with A.J. Brown, with this offense, right? If the culture's not good and you're supposed to be a culture guy, what do you exactly do here? Because you don't call plays and you won't step in with the offense struggling as much as it has. And I don't expect major changes with this offense. We're going to live and we're going to die with what happens with A.J. Brown. The tough thing with A.J. Brown is, A.J. Brown is a player that you can't bench him, right? But it's hard starting him. Now, the last 2 weeks has been favorable when you have started A.J. Brown, right? But he's had an up and down season, right? I expect A.J. Brown to continue to be a solid option due to the whole stuff in the locker room and everything else. I mean, when you factor in the last 3 weeks, he's had 7 receptions, 8 receptions, and 10 receptions, right? 11.9, 25, and 35.2 in terms of fantasy points per game. He didn't play week 8. He had a bye week 9, and then that Minnesota game, he had 28.1 points, right? He had the 2 touchdown game and 14 points the week before that. So like he has been better than people are making it out to be. And I don't expect him to go and crap the bed. He does get a tough matchup though. He plays the Chargers this week. Chargers are the number 1 defense to limiting points to the wide receivers. Their corners have been very, very stingy this year, right? But the playoffs should be really nice, right? You get the Raiders and you get Washington, 29th to points allowed to wide receivers and 28th to points allowed to wide receivers. You get Buffalo in the championship game. AJ Brown's a player. You're going to have to start him, right? And that sounds crazy to say. The fact that I have to will you or convince you to start AJ Brown shouldn't be the case, right? And it would not have been the case, or you wouldn't expect it to be the case before the season started. But he's turned it on the last 2 weeks. I just think this offense is going to be really ugly, and you're going to really going to have to hold your nose if you're watching those games that they play in. So we shall see. But AJ Brown so far has returned very, very strongly the last 2 weeks, and we hope that he carries that momentum. Next takeaway we're going to talk about is A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell, Jets wide receiver, exploded this week, right? 8 catches, 102 yards, 1 touchdown. This guy had 12 targets. This offensive passing game has looked better with Tyrod Taylor. It does not look average. It does not look good. Does not look great, right? But it's better than bottom of the barrel, maybe? I don't even know if I can even say that. It's better than what Justin Fields was doing through the air. So that's better, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm not excited to start A.D. Mitchell. I'm not excited to start John Mechie this year, right? They do have a decent schedule. So I think in leagues where you have to start 3 wide receivers and a flex, they're options. So I'm not going to say they're not, right? Keep in mind, though, A.D. Mitchell, still 23 years old, 4.34 40-yard dash, 9th percentile speed score, right? He fell into in the draft, unexpected due to either health stuff. I think he has diabetes. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the case, right? And then maybe some head case stuff, which I think we saw a little bit in Indy, right? There were some issues. He was benched, right? And some character stuff, right? He is going to be with the Jets unless they trade him until 2028. We're talking another couple of years for him. So if you have him in Dynasty, you're kind of stuck here, right? I mean, I advocated for John Mechie as a nice buy. I like John Mechie. A.D. Mitchell is very talented. A.D. Mitchell could have been a first-round pick, late first-round pick, in my opinion, if he did not slip. He was projected to go late first, early second, and didn't in that draft 2 years ago. But, quarterback situation is still up in the air. So dynasty perspective, I'm not, falling out of my shoes to go make a big offer for A.D. Mitchell, but he could maybe be an option, just like John Mechie, given the rest of the season schedule in deeper league formats, right? So Garrett Wilson, earliest he can come back is week 15. When Garrett Wilson does come back, if he does, this team could be out of it, or they already are out of it. Is there a reason to bring Garrett Wilson back? I don't know. We saw Joe Burrow come back, and they're not officially eliminated, right? They win this week against the Ravens. And so, we've seen maybe Garrett Wilson can be similar to Joe Burrow, where he says, I'm paid to play football, so I'm going to play football. If I'm healthy and good to go, I don't care if the team is not winning anymore or can't make the playoffs anymore, right? I'm going to go out there and play. So we'll see. How does Garrett Wilson? Of course, he's going to be a major effect when he comes back, right? That you can't expect A.D. Mitchell and John Mechie to, perform as well as they have when Wilson comes back. But for now, if you've started either of them, they've been solid for you, especially John Mechie the last 2 weeks, not including this week, and then A.D. Mitchell this week. So something to monitor. I'm not going out of my shoes, but I to go get him, but I wouldn't mind him being a throw-in in a deal if you are making some trades in Dynasty. Now, let's move on to number 5, Kimani Vidal, right? This Chargers backfield, Amar and Hampton, window opens up. He practices last week and doesn't play. Right? Doesn't play. Comes out. We find out that he ends up having, I believe, some sort of fracture in his ankle, right? Which is why This guy was in a walking boot, right? Not super surprising to me, right? We talked about here multiple times. I said it. When the bye week comes, I expect him to possibly miss one more week after the bye week. And it happened. He did miss, right? I expect him to come back this week, though. Expect him to come back. And what does that mean for Kimani Vidal? Let's talk about Kimani Vidal, who had an awesome week. I was super reluctant to start him. I almost started Devin Neal over him, and I made the last second pivot to start Kimani Vidal in a couple of leagues over Devin Neal, who I felt strong conviction over and still like rest of the season. But Kimani Vidal, 25 rushes, 126 yards, one touchdown, 31 rushing yards over expected per next gen stats. Kimani Vidal looked awesome yesterday, right? This guy forced 12 missed tackles against the Raiders, the most a Chargers player has done since week 2 in 2020, which is Austin Eckler, who forced 13 missed tackles against Kansas City. Again, all that's per next-gen stats. Vidal, also per next-gen stats, had 89 yards off of missed tackles, which is the 8th most by any player in a game this season. So he looked really good, and it bodes the question, what does this workload look like with Amarion Hampton coming back, right? Did he earn himself, you know, more time, right, with Hampton coming back? When Hampton was healthy and he started to do really well towards the back end before he got hurt, he was getting a very large workload. If I had to guess today, I think it's a 65-35 split. I think Vidal gets closer to a 50-50 split first week back, and then that tapers down a little bit, and it's going to be Hampton being the workload guy, a workhorse guy. But I do think Vidal is worth holding in deeper leagues, right? If you don't have a really deep league, he's probably worth cutting. He might have some value this week, right? But odds are, right, he's nothing more than a deep stash bench play in case Hampton re-aggravates it, or in case we're wrong, which we happen to be often, right? None of us are perfect, right? In case this backfield ends up being more of a split than we expected, right? So kind of something to monitor. I think he's droppable. I would drop him for a guy like Devin Neal, especially if you have the running back space, right? If you want to keep him as a handcuff to Hampton, fine. But we're in a part of the season where, you know, there's not much talent out there on waivers. And it's important to go take swings on guys, right? There's not much time left. We know what these guys are, most of them at this point in the year. Devin Neal is a wild card. We don't know what Devin Neal is yet, but what we do know is he can catch the ball. This team tends to play from behind a lot, and he's got a really good schedule rest of the season, right? So I would drop Kimani Vidal for Devin Neal in most scenarios, right? I don't think Vidal is a guy that has standalone value or will have standalone value with Hampton back. He could be annoying to Hampton, could be frustrating, but I don't think he's going to have standalone value. He did earn some more time, in my opinion, but it's not going to be enough time where you're going to feel confident and comfortable going out and starting him, especially considering they don't have the best schedule rest of the season. So that's a little bit on Kimani Vidal. Let's go ahead and move over to our next takeaway, and it is going to be Bucky Irving. Let's talk about Bucky Irving, right? I mean, Bucky Irving is back, and he's been worth the wait, right? I mean, first came back, we got everything that we could want from Bucky Irving. We got a extremely strong workload. This guy dominated the touches, no easing him in, which was some of a concern for people, right? That should ease our minds. Bucky Irving had 19 touches, Rachaad White had 5 touches, and Sean Tucker went back to being what Sean Tucker was when Bucky Irving was healthy. Pretty much an afterthought, which is not a shade on Sean Tucker. Good NFL back, but he only had 2 touches. And the problem is his style, right, is more of a early down back, right? And he doesn't really provide early. They're not going to take Bucky Irving off the field for the early downs, right? Bucky Irving comes in 16 PPR points, 17 rushes, 61 yards, and a touchdown, 2 catches for 20 yards. I mean, it's everything we could have wanted for Bucky. There was concerns about Baker Mayfield's health. What does his offense look like, right? The offense looked and operated okay. It operated fine, right? Baker played. We talked about it last week. I said I thought Baker was going to play. I didn't have concerns about him missing time. And Bucky Irving has an amazing schedule rest of the season. He's got the Saints, he's got Atlanta, he's got Carolina, and he's got Miami. That's the rest of the schedule for Bucky Irving. So, I know there's some people out there that are probably extremely frustrated because Bucky Irving tanked maybe their season, but if you were smart and you were able to pay up for his backups, you probably were kept enough afloat, or hopefully you were, where now you're going to reap the rewards for Bucky Irving rest of the season here, right? This is a RB1 rest of the season, no doubt in my mind. This guy should smash the rest of the season here. So if you held on to him and you've been extremely frustrated with him, you were rewarded. And that's good enough for me. And it should be good enough for you. And hopefully the rest of the season is good enough for all of us. Now, before we move on to our next takeaway, I do want to make sure you guys do know if you guys have any questions or any mailbag questions, it could be NFL related, it could be fantasy football related, it could be betting related, it could be Monday Night Football, it could be DFS. Anything that you guys have, make sure you're sending them in. We're halfway through the program today. I will answer any questions that you guys might have. Going a little bit earlier today than what we normally do to make sure that you guys can ask those questions, have enough time before the game starts tonight, and enough time to absorb the information, right, as you start to make some decisions for the rest of your season. So make sure you drop some questions in here. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you use my code on Fast Draft Nova to get that deposit match. And also, we are close, again, to 30,000 subscribers here at Player Profiler. It supports us, helps us out. Please make sure you are subscribed if you are not already. And let's keep going. Next player we're going to talk about is Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty is a little bit of a wild card, right? I mean, this offensive line stinks. The offense stinks. Chip Kelly is gone. There's now mudslinging going around with the Raiders, and Pete Carroll is pretty. I gotta think he is sifting and sending information out to cover his back for how bad this offense and team has looked this year, right? And Chip Kelly, I mean, reports are forgetting the play calls. Gino's going up the line and has half of the play, and things don't look right, and a ton of dysfunction. But that's the Raiders. Not to be surprised, right? You have Ashton Jeanty, though. What do we do with Ashton Jeanty, right? I mean, concerns of the offensive line stinks. Is he going to be able to be efficient enough to return on value? He has not been efficient enough on the ground. He has been efficient through the air, though. And that's what's been most important. The receiving value is keeping Ashton Jeanty's value for fantasy alive this year, right? 3 out of 5 games, or of the last 5 games, he's had 15 or more fantasy points, right? He's had just one game of the last 5 below 12 PPR points, right? 3 straight weeks, though, with 8 targets. He's ran over 20 routes in 3 straight weeks, 2 of those being 24 and 25. So he is running, and he is getting bell cow work. He's getting bell cow work on the ground. He's getting bell cow work through the air. 8 targets straight through 3 weeks is a elite receiving volume, right? And no one's going to talk about it because it's the Raiders. They stink, right? And Jeanty has been a disappointment given where he was drafted. But we are not at week 1. We're not in August. We're here getting ready for week 14. And the draft capital doesn't matter. You got to throw that out of your mind. Okay. What matters is rest of season. That's why we capitalized on Chase Brown weeks ago. Chase Brown had another good week. And guess what? Samaje Perine was back, and Chase Brown still had a good week. So for everybody that was concerned, well, Perine was out for a short period of time. Maybe that's why Chase Brown played well. What happens when he comes back? Well, Chase Brown still looked really, really good this week. So same can be said for Ashton Jeanty, right? Where we spent a lot of draft capital on him. He hasn't returned that draft capital early, with what he was drafted for, but that doesn't matter. What matters is rest of the season and how we can project it, right? And it's going to be an up and down rest of the season here for Jeanty, right? He gets Denver this week. Did not perform well against Denver the last time. That's going to be a tough matchup. Thankfully, we can get that one out of the way for the fantasy football playoffs because it does get better. He gets the Eagles in the first round of the playoffs, and they just gave 200 plus yards rushing to the running back position for the Bears. 2 players went over 100 yards rushing, 2 separate players, right? Now, I do not expect the Raiders to get pushed around. I mean, the Eagles to get pushed around like by the Raiders, the way the Bears offensive line did. Okay. So that is an outlier, of course. But what I do expect for them is to be down. And if they're down, they're going to throw the ball. And if they throw the ball, we've seen Ashton Jeanty catch passes. We've seen the receiving volume there. So That's encouraging, right? You just have to hope that the receiving volume continues. And he's been a workhorse. So he also gets Houston in the semis, which is not good. That's not good. But then he gets the Giants in the championship. And Ashton Jeanty could be a literal league winner. I mean, the championship last week of the season, he could win you that week and win you your championship. I mean, he gets the Giants. So just got to get there. We just got to get there, man. Just got to get there. Just got to hope that his receiving volume keeps us afloat, raises the floor just enough, or maybe the rest of our team can kind of get us there and Jeanty can smash for us in the championship. Let's move over to our number 8 takeaway, and it's Jared Goff. Jared Goff, man, this guy to me is a low-end quarterback one rest of season. Jared Goff has just one game below 22 fantasy points in the last 5 weeks. And it's like nobody cares. Nobody cares. Jared Goff, I tell you, man, that one of the cheat codes for fantasy has been quarterbacks that are good, that don't run, but are in great offenses with average defenses, right? Nobody wanted Jared Goff. He's been a good fantasy quarterback for years now. Nobody wanted him because he doesn't run. He doesn't run enough. And because these guys, they don't run, they're not sexy. And, people want the high upside. But the high upside maybe is the quarterback in a great offense that is a really efficient quarterback. And Jared Goff's been awesome. He's been awesome, right? He had one bad week against the Eagles. That was outdoors. But keep in mind, he plays a dome game in every single week remaining for the fantasy season. That's great. Now, I get it. St. Brown is hurt. No Sam Laporta. That is a concern. Both of those guys missing are concerns. And you hope that St. Brown comes back and just misses 1 week. That would be phenomenal, right? He gets the Steelers in the semis. He gets Minnesota in the championship, right? Those are two really, really, really good matchups for the last 2 weeks of the season. And yeah, I mean, this Lions team's been disappointing, but they have got to turn it on if they want to make the playoffs. And this is a team, I keep saying it, I've said it all year. They are no strangers to stepping on the throat and running up a score, which is awesome for fantasy managers. So this is a statement stretch for them. They just lost on Thanksgiving, licking their wounds, some guys injured, some guys missing. But there's one thing Dan Campbell knows how to do. It's he knows how to rally his troops, and he knows how to have them bounce back from adversity. So we'll see. But Jared Goff, to me, is a low-end quarterback one rest of the season when you look at that schedule. Let's go on and look at our number 9 takeaway. And again, we're getting close to the end of the show here, so make sure you send in any mailbag or any questions that you have. Number 9, we got to talk about Houston's offense. CJ Stroud comes back. I was shocked. I thought Davis Mills was going to be the quarterback this past week. Stroud was still in concussion protocol. He ends up clearing. He ends up playing. Now, CJ Stroud for fantasy, if you had Stroud, you weren't super happy. 276, no touchdowns, an interception, and Stroud doesn't run the ball much. So fantasy-wise, you weren't really happy with Stroud. But for everybody else, at least the pass catchers, we were very happy. CJ Stroud, 7.9 yards per attempt. The ball was being pushed downfield. That's what we want to see. We want to see the ball pushed downfield. Nico Collins, 10 targets, 5 catches, 98 yards. That is elite volume, right? Jaden Higgins, 5 targets, 5 catches, 65 yards. Heck, Dalton Schultz continuing to get into the mix. 8 targets, 7 catches, 55 yards. Is Dalton Schultz a guy that should be viewed as a low-end tight end one the rest of the season? Maybe. I mean, he's getting the volume. He's been good this year, kind of underrated. So volume was there for all 3 of those guys, and the ball was being pushed downfield, right? So that's super encouraging. They get the Chiefs next week. This is going to be a really, really big test for this offense. Can it continue its momentum in its chase for a playoff spot? Heck, for a division title. They play the Chiefs. The Chiefs, 6-6, on the outside looking in for the playoff picture. They need to win. Houston, 1 game back from the divisional championship. They still get the Colts one more time. Can Houston end up winning that division? We'll see. This is a big nut up game for both of these sides. And CJ Stroud has been solid against the Chiefs in Arrowhead when he's had to play there. So we'll see if he can continue it. But good signs for the Houston offense. And let's hope that the momentum continues. Let's move on to our final takeaway. And it's going to be George Kittle. George Kittle, slow start when he came back from the injury. He has had one game of less than 10 PPR points since his injury. And he's also had 2 games of 22 or more points since returning from injury. He's had some smash weeks. He's had a really high floor as well. Over the last 4 weeks, the ball is coming his way, and he's had no game with less than 5 targets, including 2 games with 9 or more. He has a bye this week. Go get Brenton Strange on waivers if he's available. I know he's available. I've seen in a lot of areas just 25%. 25% for Brenton Strange. He should not be available in that many leagues. But he is. If you have George Kittle, go get Brenton Strange this week against the Colts, right? And go pick him up as a replacement. Heck, you might even be able to start both guys, when Kittle comes back, because both guys are balling so far, returning from their injuries. Now, George Kittle gets the Titans, he gets the Colts, and he gets the Bears. He's got a top tight end schedule rest of the season. If you're a dynasty contender and you're a tight end away, and you should be trading for George Kittle if you do not have a trade deadline. You should be trading for George Kittle, right? He just signed a contract extension. He's not going away after this season. Tight ends age well. They last for a long time. This guy's tough. He loves football. He's going to keep playing, in my opinion. Go trade for George Kittle in Dynasty if you have him. If you have him in redraft, you're feeling really good about this stretch coming up, right? No Brandon Ayuk, and Ricky Pearsall has struggled since returning from his injury. I don't see this train slowing down for George Kittle, and I don't see Brandon Ayuk making a return anytime soon. So that's going to do it for the top 10 takeaways. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this show. I'm going to miss it. It's been an awesome season so far. You guys have shown a lot of support, and I've really appreciated it. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. I'll keep saying it. We're close to 30,000 subscribers. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I will check out the comments to see if there are any mailbag questions, and a couple here. So let's take a look. From Dynasty Football Key, said, hoping Terry stays healthy. Looks like Zach Ertz is still getting work with 10 catches. Is the Commanders' offense a buy low with/if Daniels comes back? Also, buy Breece Hall before the Miami game. Yes. I would say Zach Ertz is a guy who, he's inevitable. He doesn't go away. He's not going to get a ton of yak, but you hope that he scores touchdowns and he gets good volume, right? So he's a good floor play rest of the season. I still prefer Brenton Strange, but I think he's a solid option. Chris Rodriguez, we talked about him at the top of the show for waiver wire ads. Schedule's not great for Rodriguez, but with injuries to Aaron Jones, with a bye week next week, you might be worth a guy to go pick up, especially if you lost Vidal or losing Vidal due to Hampton coming back. Buy Breece Hall. Absolutely. We should be buying Breece Hall in Dynasty for sure. We talked about him in my video last week. If you haven't checked that out, we talked about Dynasty buys that you should be making, and he is one of them. Troy in the house said, thanks, Pete. Your Kyron and Javonte over Rico pick helped me out. Happy to help out, Troy. I was nervous for Rico Dowdle, and the Rico Dowdle, I don't think the experience is over, but Chuba Hubbard looks healthy after that game, and this is probably getting back to close to a 50-50 split and maybe even going towards Chuba's way. They're going to continue to ride the hot hand, I think, and right now Chuba, after just one game, is the hot hand. So we'll see. Hopefully, if you have Rico and you didn't sell him, hopefully he can, bounce back. But a tough game against a tough team, and he's had 2 tough weeks back-to-back so far. Morgan Grimes, and I'll get to Galaxy Pickers, said, need 17.5 point PPR points from Tyrone Tracy tonight. Does Dart downgrade the Giants' backfield? Well, I don't think he downgrades it. I think Jameis likes to push the ball downfield a lot. I think Dart running is going to eliminate the swing passes and the check downs a little bit more. They're replaced with his legs a lot. But keep in mind, this guy's missed time due to injuries. Getting to the late part of the season, does Dart limit the amount of times he runs? So that's possible. But in a half-point PPR, 17 points is expecting a lot from Tracy. I would tell you, hopefully this is not an elimination game for you, because I would not love my chances against the Patriots in this matchup. If it was PPR, I'd feel much better about Tracy, but half PPR is a little sketchy when you need 17 points against a tough defense. Galaxy Picker said, any update on Drake London? Are we optimistic he comes back week 15? As a Drake London manager, I am not optimistic that he comes back this week. The Falcons just lost. Their season's on life support. It's pretty much over. They're not even in the hunt anymore. Why push Drake London back? It's kind of similar to the Garrett Wilson theory of why rush to come back in a lost season. Now, Joe Burrow came back different, though. He's a leader of that team. He's the quarterback, and he's a competitor. These guys are all competitors. I don't know that Drake London pushes it and comes back. I hope so. I need it. I need him. I need it bad. I need it bad. But I'm not super optimistic that he returns next week, especially how quickly they were to say that he was doubtful to play early in the week last week. Also, droppable players on my roster: Burden, Corum, Tootin, and need to upgrade Waller from IR for the playoffs. Who would you prefer dropping of those listed? I think if you have the running back space, I think Tootin's droppable. I think we've had enough of a frustrating experience with Tootin where we thought he's going to take over the backfield. He doesn't. He doesn't. Travis Etienne's looked really good. And honestly, Kyron banged up last week. Corum's getting a lot of touches, and we've saw if Kyron goes down, I much prefer Corum in a bell cow role than Tootin in his offense in a bell cow role. So I'd rather have Corum rest the season, not because either of these guys, not for standalone value, but just off the fact that I don't want to get fooled into starting Tootin if Travis Etienne is healthy again rest of the season, because he's going to be inconsistent. And I also so I'm looking at it as a handcuff more, and I would prefer Corum as the handcuff over Tootin, and I would prefer to keep Burden for sure. I mean, Roma Dunze has been super frustrating. Luther Burden's getting all the easy touches. He's getting a lot of the manufactured touches, and he's been producing lately. So I want to keep Burden at this point. Is Igbuka not a start anymore? I think Igbuka right now is a low-end 2/wide receiver flex. I don't think he's someone that you're not starting. I don't have his schedule in front of me. I think he's pretty much flex worthy / low end wide receiver 2, depending. Maybe that gets bumped up to a mid wide receiver 2, depending on the matchup. He does get the Saints this week, but I think we're going to get a heavy dose of running the football. Maybe take a little bit of pressure off Baker. Maybe less hits from him in a matchup that should be good. And then you get Atlanta. Maybe Mike Evans comes back, though. If Mike Evans comes back, this offense opens up. And there are talks that Mike Evans could come back this week or next, which would honestly be a bump up for Igbuka, not a bump down, in my opinion. But he's got Carolina, he's got Miami. Those are tough matchups in the semis and the finals. And really, it's not the fact that Igbuka is just not playing well. It's just the fact that the catchable targets have just been really bad for Igbuka. The quality of the targets have just been not good. He has 8 targets again against Arizona. The volume is there. They're just not catchable. I mean, Igbuka hasn't had less than 8 targets since week 6. He's only had one game over 10 points in that span. So the volume's there. He's a low-end wide receiver 2/flex play. It's hard to bench the volume. So that's how I view it. It's more of a wide receiver, low-end 2/flex play. If you're starting 3 wide receivers, then, of course, you're going to start Igbuka. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. As I said, make sure you like, you subscribe. If you are watching this replay and you have questions, feel free to send it in to the comment section. Please, 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 before you leave, make sure you like. It's going to help me out tremendously and us here at Player Profiler. And as always, make sure you subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck in your matchups tonight, And I'll see you guys next.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.